Welcome to Uncorked and Unscripted, the podcast and video series that gives you VIP access to the unscripted stories of people I've met through events. In this episode of Uncorked and Unscripted, CEO of Game Day Social, Jael Thorpe, joins us to discuss fashionable game day wear, her family, making the difficult decision to close a business, and how that can pave the way for skyrocketing success across the globe. Now uncork your favorite beverage and listen up as we spend the next half hour unscripted. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Uncorked and Unscripted. I am your host, Addie Graham Kramer of the event company. Today, we have my friend Jael Thorpe here with us today. Hi, Jael.
Hi, Addie. Thanks for having me. This is so fun.
Yeah, you've been traveling a lot lately in your home now, right?
Yes, for about a month, which is refreshing.
A month? Did you say a month?
Yeah, that's a long time for me.
Wow, it is a long time. You've been taking your boys with you, though, that I've been seeing, right?
Yes, each of them has had a one-on-one trip this fall, which has been so fun.
Where have you been? Tell everybody.
Yeah, so my oldest is a big golf fan, and I was invited to speak at a PGA tournament in Arkansas for their Women's Day. So Lincoln came to that. He got to meet some golfers, which he was pretty stoked about. My middle boy loves hockey. We went to Canada for some NHL meetings and a Maple Leafs game. And then Winston, my youngest, we just went to Scottsdale last week for some R&D.
That's what I saw. And then I saw that you guys ran into an Indian wedding, right? Outside of your Airbnb, was it? Or what was that?
No, we were at the JW Marriott, this gorgeous resort in Scottsdale. Yeah. And there was a full-on Indian wedding happening. It's this whole procession. I'm seriously just cheesing out. I'm like, how do I get invited to an Indian wedding? This is so cool.
I saw your post. But, well, we're going to dive into it. We'll talk a little bit more about Indian weddings as we kind of get into it. But the first thing that we always ask all of our guests on Uncorked and Unscripted, because of the uncorked piece of it, unscripted will come a little bit later. But for the uncorked, if you were to be a beverage, JL, that would describe you, what would be that beverage?
Well, with the wine reference, my husband and I love wine. We collect wine. We like to try wines. I would say I'd be a good cab, real
good.
Full-bodied, flavorful, and a little bit, little on the older end, I suppose. So
you're not old, JL. How old are you? Tell everybody.
I just turned 40 this year, and I tell people I'm finally the age I've felt for 20 years. So old soul.
Old. Well. Today, we are going to just dive in. I think I have always admired you for many years of all that you've been a part of, from photography to Boutique Wise to Game Day Social, mom of 3 boys, like all of the thing. I'm also a mom of boys, so it's just fun to collaborate and just chat anytime that we're together. But before we get into more of it, why don't you tell people a little bit about where you're from? You're from a small town in South Dakota, and really how you got to be where you're at with Game Day Social.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a South Dakota girl. I grew up in a little tiny town. The tiny town, I call it a village, of Gary, South Dakota. And I, moved to the city of Brookings to go to college at that stage of my life. And that's actually where I started my first business in college. I started a photography business.
Yeah.
Spent some student loan money on photography equipment and
awesome.
Got my taste of entrepreneurship as a junior in college. So that's really where it started for me. And then I've done a number of small businesses over the years, some successfully, some not. And all of it really kind of led to most of my career has been spent in fashion with women's retail. And that's where Game Day Social started from.
So what's Game Day Social for those that are listening?
Yeah. So our core purpose, our core focus at Game Day Social is elevating the social fan experience through licensed apparel. And essentially what that means is creating elevated pieces for women, specifically around collegiate sports.
And they're awesome pieces, let me tell you. I have a few of them, and they are comfortable, they are fashionable, they look good, they're not your typical Gildan, no offense to Gildan, tees, like crunchy tees. They're just such a great piece. But you started this company, right? Was it right before COVID or during COVID? I'm trying to remember what.
Yes, exactly. So 2019 is really when the idea started to form. We'd been producing SDSU t-shirts and selling them in our store in Brookings for a couple of years. And I started to see this opportunity. And so, yeah, completely on a whim, the summer of 2019, I reached out to a major retailer and just asked if I could pitch them. They said yes to a test. And so that was the proof of concept. And I was guns blazing. And then, of course, 2020 happened and all bets were off. I was just focusing on keeping my stores alive at that time, honestly. Right. And so, yeah, really 2021 is, I'd say, really when the company launched.
The birth date. When you had your stores, and I remember stopping into one of them, and there was a lot of different clothing. I think you had shoes. There's a lot of things in there, which was so geared towards, I think, fun fashion, but not, I don't want to say, not cheesy fashion in my eyes anyway. Just, it was good clothing. What was the inspo behind leaving that piece of it and starting Game Day Social? Like, what was the big nudge of like, okay, I think we found something here?
Yeah, no, I love that question. I think of that often, honestly. And I think for me as an entrepreneur, I always had this desire to build something with scalability. And, when I did photography, when I had the 2 boutiques, it always required me to be so present. And boots on the ground.
Yeah.
And I think just for me, honestly, after I became a mom and I just started to be more motivated to just really build something again with scalability, I always was kind of keeping that in mind. And then I think I started to recognize, like, gosh, these silly graphic tees we're making are blowing out of here compared to everything else that we sell. So yeah, it really honestly kind of happened by accident.
Mm-hmm. How involved is your husband in the business?
It kind of comes and goes seasonally. I mean, we call his official title market analyst, also known as sports obsessed, and which is perfect because part of my story is I'm really not actually a sports fan. I just didn't grow up around sports. I don't pay a lot of attention to sports. And so he really is very dialed into that world and is awesome at telling me what teams are performing well. But yeah, I would say primarily his involvement really is keeping our boys managed, loved, nurtured, educated while I'm grinding and traveling and doing all the things.
Yeah. It's a lot. It takes, I think you mentioned the village earlier before with Gary, but it does take a village to be able to help out. I know when I launched the company back in 2013, my husband was just into launching his as well. And for us, it was, and obviously it's a lot of talks between each other to say who's focused on what and what's happening. And I went all in on the company at that time. And he was very much so focused on our boys and their development and drop-offs in school and things like that. And I remember in the beginning years, I don't know how you were, but in our beginning years, I was putting in 16, 18, sometimes 20-hour days. And it was just a lot in those beginning times. But I felt like I was also a bit disconnected from family, which was a big switch of focus for me anyway. But he was so focused on Costco on Tuesdays and picking up the boys on this day and taking them here at these things. Like everything was so rigid. But people would always ask, well, then what's your work-life balance? And I absolutely have hated that question all of my life because it's a balance that works for us, right? Like our family. And there's times like he's in his season of busyness now and I am not. So it's a different shift of things. But did you feel like that in those beginning years as well?
Yeah, big time. No, I love hearing you talk about that because I think that's a pretty big part of our story too, is that, Brian and I have been married for about 15 years and the early years, he was a farmer. He was part of a multi-generational family farm. He worked all the time and I was really the primary parent and my business was very much a side piece of our lives. And we kind of got to that point. It was really when our third son was born about 5 years ago. I started to just feel like, okay, something has to give here for us to give our kids the experience that we want. Mm-hmm. And that's when we made that decision that while he loved the farm and being part of that business, Game Day had the scalability again, that opportunity. And so over the course of a couple of years, we made that decision that he would leave the farm. And mm-hmm. I mean, it's been a transition for sure for both of us, for me to be not present with our kids every single moment like I used to be. But it's worked for us. And it's been really fun to see him thrive in that season.
And you find the moments where you are completely present. And for me, it's shutting off if we can and just being there, whether for us, we are a big sports family. So if you're ever looking for part-time work, maybe I could just help fill in and coach you on some sports pieces, but we're a big sports family, but, it's fun to be present in those moments now. And even like today, I need to take my little guy to the ortho, and like, there's things where like a few years ago, I was just so heads down and go and build. And we're still growing and building. But we're in a different season, which I think you just have to appreciate all these moments, just as like the boys are getting older, right? They may not need you at every single thing right now, but there are going to come a time when they're in different things and different activities where you are going to want to be there and present in those pieces. So life just kind of switches and changes up as it needs to.
And, I feel the same way about that question about balance. And what I always say is that for us, it's been way more about the integration of family and work than the balance of it, because you're right. Like for me in this season of scaling a company, I work a lot, and I've just worked hard to make my boys part of that. That's why we homeschool. They get to travel with me a lot. They're on the payroll. They have responsibilities here. And so, you just get to design what that looks like.
And they're seeing you do it all, which is awesome. That's the fun part about it. And I get our boys involved as much as we can as well. They've done quite a few things over the years. And I think that's the fun part, because they truly see the hard work that goes into it, that you're not just gallivanting around the country, and you're actually, you're doing work, and they're seeing what hard work produces in the end, which is really, really kind of cool for them too.
It doesn't have to look a certain way. And so when I took Whitaker to Toronto a few weeks ago, we visited a friend who owns a sports apparel company there that's much larger than ours. And I just could see his wheels turning of like, this is what this could become, that what my mom is doing.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was really neat.
So how is homeschooling? Have you always homeschooled the boys?
For most of their education, yes. Lincoln, our oldest, went to public school in Brookings, and it just wasn't the right fit for him. It wasn't the right fit for our family. And then COVID hit and school closed, and we're like, well, this is a perfect transition. So since then.
How do you balance that with both you and Brian?
Brian definitely leads the majority of that, which is actually really great. His background before he farmed, he was an elementary teacher. And so it's kind of fun.
That's
it's
awesome.
Very different doing it as dad.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
He's great with them. I mean, I'd say he's definitely the primary educator, but I get to swoop in and do the fun stuff and take him on field trips and,
Drew always jokes like, I'm the Spanish English one. He's the math one. Like we each have kind of our own little niche with different things. And then there's sometimes where he's like, I'm teaching them about life and how to be a man. You teach them the school pieces. So we get kind of jokes about that stuff, but yeah, it's fun. It's fun. So our oldest is a freshman now in high school, and then our youngest is a sixth grader. And our freshman just gets so jacked up when he's making quiche at school and learning all these things. And that's the fun part about seeing how their wheels are spinning and how they grow into these little humans, little people, which is awesome.
And the influence that you've had on those interests. And I always say babies don't keep. And sometimes I lament that I'm totally through that phase with my family, but also I'm loving the more mature relationships with my boys too.
Yeah, it's fun. How for you, like when you're so busy like this and you're traveling, especially from a month-wise, that's not normal for you. You do travel a bit, and trying to get into these different organizations or different companies and new licensing and all the things that you're doing, which is pretty awesome. But what's a normal day for you look like? Are you an early morning riser? Are you workouting in the morning? Tell me like what your day looks like.
Yeah, that is definitely probably the hardest part about travel, is that routines are tough there. Because just physically, spiritually, diet, all of those things it's hard to stay on rhythm. But generally I like to get up before my kids, get in a Peloton ride, do a little scripture reading, a little journaling.
Who's your favorite instructor? Do you have a favorite one?
A lot of times I end up just listening to my own music, because I think a lot of them are really kind of annoying. If I'm honest.
Too funny. I'm a big Allie fan, and this is probably, I don't think it's embarrassing. People love Taylor Swift at my age, and I think it's just fine. But I have done so many of her Taylor Swift rides lately, like on repeat over and over and over.
Those are good. Probably my all-time favorite, I bet I've done it 6 times, is, I think it's hers, Alanis Morissette. I mean, you and me are in that era of like,
yeah. Oh yeah,
Alanis.
for sure. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. No, I like Allie, and I do a lot of Bradley Rose rides. He's just goofy and but yeah. So yeah, no, I like to get up early. My kids with homeschooling honestly sleep in, which I kind of love. I think it's really good for their development. But
yeah, agree.
So we kind of have slow mornings. I get in a ride, and my coffee, and then usually I bring them to tutoring. But both my boys have dyslexia, which has just been a really fun piece of our journey too. But get them to tutoring and then head to the office, and I feel like every day is a little different from there.
Yeah, it is. And you're in Sioux Falls now, which I love.
Yes. Oh, we love Sioux Falls. It's been so good for us. In fact, I think as of last week, it's been exactly 2 years.
Wow, that's so awesome. I think I saw it on one of your stories. Brian was putting up some signage. Was he doing some like signage work or something? Or lights, or
yes.
what was he doing?
Yes. We have this little basement office. We call it garden level office downtown. We're below the Canfield building at 9th in Minnesota. We love it. It's a great space. But yes, he's always helping me zhuzh it up a little bit.
That's what they're there for. When we took over this office space where we're at, I don't think you've been here yet, but we are in Vanderwall Architects' old space right on Phillips Avenue. And when we got into the space, it's a great space, awesome bones. And as you can imagine, being an architect firm, it's very well put together, but it just wasn't as feminine enough as I would have wanted it at that point in time. And in that firm, at that point in time, there's just a couple females. So I knew that we just needed some lady love to be integrated into this space. So my husband got involved on a couple little things over the years and helping to do this and helping do whatever, but that's the handy part of them.
Gosh, an architect space, though, our office in Brookings belonged to an architect, and it was just done so well.
Yeah, isn't it so
There's
fun?
just an appreciation for quality and just great bones that you don't see in offices a lot. No. So yeah, that's awesome.
Well, a question that I've been always just very interested in knowing from my side, from one female entrepreneur to another, is I grew up in female entrepreneur. Like my mother was one. My mother and father both owned restaurants and bakeries, and my husband is one, and my in-laws are one. So I've been around family business for so much of my life. And for me, what is it like from your perspective? Like, how would you describe it pivoting from one business into another? Like, what's that transition like? How does it feel? Do you feel like you're letting go of a child and this is the next path? Like, talk to me like emotionally how that whole process was. I've just always been curious to know.
You know, I love that question so much because I actually was just talking to someone yesterday, a business owner that I've been mentoring a bit. And the advice I gave her was, I should say the perspective I gave her was, over the years, I think most of the time I waited too long to exit things. Like looking back, I mean, I owned my store in Brookings up until 2 years ago. And at that point, I really needed the mental, the creative capacity to focus on game day social. But it was hard to give it up. It was my baby. It also was profitable. And it felt like I should just keep going with this. But the moment I did that, it really gave me a lot more clarity. And so I just always encourage entrepreneurs, no matter what you're walking away from, by doing that, it will naturally make the thing you're focusing on more successful because you just have this creative capacity mentally. And so, yeah, I mean, I think over the years, I mean, there are definitely things that like I said, hung on to too long. And also,
are you a control freak too with stuff? Like you need to do it. Yeah.
I like to control it. And I think there's also been this aspect for me of just, I'm an Enneagram 3, and we don't need to go down.
Me too. I think we've talked about that. Yes, I know.
We could do a whole podcast.
We need therapy. We need therapy, period. That's why.
This is why we're friends. Seriously, most of my close friends are Enneagram 3s. And like, it's because we just get each other's craziness. But I think a lot of my career I spent thinking way more about what things looked like. Did things look successful? Did I look a certain way than actually building something sustainable? And so, yeah, I mean, there were things I held on to that definitely were failing, but I just couldn't let it go because it would look like a failure. And now I'm like, don't care, not profitable, see you later, on to the next thing. So it's just,
And that's a learned behavior though. And I learned that a little bit from even just watching my mother and her businesses. Like she first started out owning a bakery and it was profitable, but the hours were not what she wanted it to be, especially as a new mom, a mom of 4. And it was time for something different. She opened up the restaurant, which was also very time consuming, but so different on a lot of different levels. And in the community, just a titch more as well, which is what she had wanted to be. And so I saw like, for me, I've said to people, and this is a learned behavior though, for sure, because I have always very similar to you, care what people think, what does it look like? But they don't realize what's behind closed doors, right? Like what's going on and who's running the ship and what's the control piece of it and where it's at. But I was always nervous to fail. And I have learned over the years that I just call that either really expensive tuition that it's a learning lesson, or you just move on and go. And in the past, I think I would have been, especially as a young entrepreneur, afraid to fail. And we always say in our house, like Kramers don't quit. We do not quit. We just get up and you go. And we are just not quitters. But I think there's a thing between when you know it's not what you are supposed to be doing and the path that you're supposed to be on, and you just know that there's something else out there, then you just move on and go. And we say that to our boys too. Both our boys are big basketballers, big footballers, but if they don't want to focus on it, just like what you were saying, like if homeschool is not the way and you don't want to push them into that, like, it's just not for them, then figure something else out for them. We're the same way. If you don't want to go to college and it is what it is, like we'll figure it out together. And I think everybody's got their own path. And so many times I feel like society feels like failure is a big disappointment, but it really could be the biggest blessing in some people's lives, to be honest.
I've started to call it in my own life and career pruning. Not failing. Mm-hmm. And there's one of my favorite Bible verses is the Lord prunes every branch in me that bears no fruit so that or cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit and prunes the ones that do so they'll be more fruitful. And I look at, for me, closing my store in Sioux Falls was really hard. It really just didn't recover after COVID. It just kind of tricked along. And I had to close it 2021. Well, that ended up being the best possible thing for Game Day Social because it freed up capital and time for me to dump in that. So I look at that as that store had to be pruned. And I'm much quicker to do that now, whether that's, any business decision, just not letting it ride along for what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
So I love how you said that.
I like talking about pruning. That's a lot better. But so what does success look like for you in Game Day Social? Is it getting new groups into, what do you call it when you bring on a new client group, like organization?
Yeah. It's a combination of license agreements. That's really what drives the business is the license agreements that we have with universities, pro teams, entertainers. But then it really is driven by the retailer relationships. We're like 99% business to business, and we have a website, but really what we do is supply retailers. So
you're focused on
and
them.
that's what as being an Enneagram 3, like that's what excites me is landing big deals, doing big launches. I would say for us, strategy growth wise is we're getting to that point where we'll definitely start to expand more into professional sports.
Sure.
I think, it is. But there's also a lot of saturation in collegiate that we haven't tapped into yet. So, but I get asked a lot, like, what is your end game? Is it to develop this multi-generational family business? Is it to grow it as fast as possible and sell it? And I just feel like we're just still really too early.
You don't know. Yeah,
to know.
You don't know.
So, but definitely growing it. Maybe we're set to double again next year, which is crazy.
So exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. It's chaotic. Whenever we hire people, I'm like, I feel like I need to be really honest with you. It's really chaotic here. Like, you just need to know that.
How your business is growing, but also you could be taking out the trash today and you could be doing something else in an hour. Like everybody is in a lot of different roles, which is just fine. And it's a-okay. But I like how you're explaining it to people that it's chaos because some people are not going to thrive in that area. And in our world, I'm sure you've seen it. People call event planners all the time, like chaos coordinators and all the things. And it's what we do day in and day out. Every minute of our lives is so very different. And we are not in a cubicle crunching numbers 24/7. We do need those people and they are a part of our team, but it's so different day in and day out. So I'm glad that you explained it to people that way, almost like a big warning flag, but a good one.
People think much like working in events sounds sexy. Working for a startup sounds exciting. It sounds sexy. And it's like, to a degree it is, but it's really freaking hard too. And it's kind of like when I owned the store, college girls would apply to work at the store. Like, I just want to have this like little fun job. I'm like, it's not really like that. So anyway, you get it.
No, I get it. How do you unwind? Like I know in Enneagram 3, we find very hard to unwind, and our unwinding could be like making lists. That's my unwinding. I love making lists of things, but what does your unwind look like?
Only an Enneagram 3 would call making a list unwinding.
No, it's so fun. I have lists on top of lists. My notes, like if someone was ever to hack into my phone, they'd be like, what the hell is this list for? Like the girls on the team, we were in Beverly Hills last week, and I make a whole list of literally every outfit to every shoe to every accessory that I'm wearing on what day, what the temperature is for that particular day. I just love it. I love lists, but that's an unwind for me is list making.
Well, come to think of it, it probably is for me too. Takes one to know one. I think that's probably for me part of the beauty of traveling so much is that it is a grind, but at the same time, like I always say, I do my best work on a plane because it's quiet, there's no distractions, and sometimes for me that means personal work too, just like really journaling, reading. So yeah, I would say it helps me to get away because if I'm at home or at the office, I'm just doing all the time. So traveling, and I just have a really dear group of friends that really pour into my life. And I would say just spending a lot of time with them, even if that's just FaceTiming and communicating is definitely fills my cup too.
Yeah. I think the business has allowed, I think both of us, I would say both our businesses, the time to focus on family when need be. And I know me personally, I think we've both gone through a loss of a parent here in the last few months. And I think where we're at, my unwind has truly been just diving a lot into family, so much more now than, and it's sad to say, like those moments really are eye-opening for a lot of things. And for me personally, I was able to just step aside and step out and have the team be able to help kind of take over some of those pieces. But I don't know what that would have looked like if I was in a 9-to-5, to be very honest, and not in the position where we're at the company. But do you feel the same is true for you from a family side of things and being able to kind of step back and allow the team to do what they need to?
Yeah, very much so. So when my dad passed away about 2.5 months ago, I mean, it was very, very unexpected. It was very difficult. And I remember saying to my husband a couple of weeks after just how like it just felt like the Lord positioned us to be able to go through this in the best way possible. Just with, I mean, in years past, in the fall, my husband would have been farming. He would have been gone. I would have been I mean, just all these circumstances that, yes, allowed me to step back and just say to the team, I'm going to be totally just gone here for a while. And yeah, of course, there are things that you come back to and you're like, oh, I would have done that a little differently or whatever. But generally speaking, absolutely, if this would have happened a couple of years ago, it would have been really just logistically very, very different. Yeah. And so, yeah, and that perspective that you pointed out, I think is so wise of, I would say I've been working a lot less since then of just at 3:00, I'm like, not every day I still am here plenty, but there are days when I'm like, you know what, I just kind of need to go home and I'm going to do that, where I think I wouldn't have given myself permission to do that.
And I think it's having team members, having friends, having others in the community be able to say that's okay, I think is for me, it's a little reassurance. I don't know for you if it is, but I didn't, and I still don't know. I think you're in the same position too. Like we knew that my mother-in-law was passing, so we had some time to be able to do it. Yours was very sudden, so very different, but we lost our parents around that same time frame. And for me, I remember just watching some of your posts and just trying to step back and trying to do all those things. And it's easier said than done, especially as a business owner. I feel like it still is there, right? So you still can come back at the end of 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a day or whatever, and it's still there, which is a reassurance, which is nice, but sometimes it's just hard. It's hard to step away. And I think if I was in a different position a few years ago, I don't know if I would have been able to completely release or feel like I had the trust in the team to be able to do so and to take over some of those responsibilities. And I would say the same would probably be for you too.
Yeah, no, big time. I mean, it is still, they're definitely the really like tough part about it was that fall is when I'm traveling the most. And that's when we're meeting with all of our accounts, our retailers across the country for these big 2025 buys. And I had to really I still went on a few of them where I really needed to go, but in a big way, I really let go and let the team do it. And honestly, they were really successful and they did really well. And I think I had that moment of realization, like, I don't actually need to be in every one of those meetings.
Yeah, they can do
They're
it.
awesome.
They can do it.
They can do it. And so in a way, I think, yeah, that was maybe a bit of a blessing in allowing me to see, oh, I could be stepping back from a few more things than I am.
And honestly, I bet they want you out, to be honest, not in a bad way, but they want to be able to thrive and to grow and to, I mean, you and I are very alike. So here, I'll give you one piece of advice. We had somebody in the office a few years ago, and I was transitioning this client over into a different relationship on our team. So I was the lead point of contact for many years. And I said, you know what? Nope, we're going to transition this over. And I did. And I remember walking by our conference room, and the woman like got up and she rushed to the door and gave me the biggest hug. And I was in there for the longest time. But all that they wanted, which is great, but all that they wanted to do is they wanted to build the trust and they wanted to learn. So it was a tough conversation. And they basically just said, like, we just want you out. Like how do they succeed and how do they thrive and how do they grow in the relationship? And truly, they just wanted me out, which I think is hard, especially as a founder and as an owner and an active person on the team. Same with you, of not taking offense to it, number one, but number two, they're allowing them to be able to grow and to empower them to be able to fail as well. Is been a blessing for us too, but they want you out, Jael. This is a secret sign. They just want you out. They want you out, girl. Let
Seriously,
them go. Let them grow.
No, I love that you just shared that story, and 100%. I can picture all of it where like your account manager is in the room and then Addie comes in and they're just like, oh, how can I compete with that?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah,
just go so I can build it. So no,
Yeah.
I love that. You can hold me accountable to doing more of that.
I know, I will. What's next over these next few months for you? I know, do you go to Vegas yet? I know last time we talked, you were headed to Vegas. Did you go there already?
Oh, I go to Vegas way more often than I would really care to, but no, we do Magic twice a year. That's a boutique fashion show, but really the like peak of our year is in January. There's a huge show in Vegas. It's called Tailgate. And so that's where all of the professional sports leagues will be, all the big retailers. And so we do a really huge booth. We're bringing 8 people this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for
Yeah.
you.
That's a really exciting event. We'll just definitely have lots of meetings and just great business development, relationship building. So yes, that's a big peak of our year. And then actually after that in February, I'm taking a 2-week vacation with my family, and
good for you.
Already telling myself I'm not bringing my laptop. So you can hold me accountable to that too.
Right. I'm like, right. Right. Take it off your phone then. Where are you guys going?
Caymans.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Your choice or Brian's choice? Whose choice or both? Like who led up that conversation?
I do most of our vacation research planning, but I've heard there's great snorkeling there and our kids love to do that. So
good for you guys. Y'all have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Where can people find more details about Game Day Social?
Yeah. So on our website,
Facebook, Insta.
Yeah.
Okay.
We redid our website this year. It's beautiful. And yeah, we're pretty active on Instagram, Game Day Social. Follow along. We're posting the quirky, weird things we're doing at the office and all the stuff. So
good.
Yeah.
Well, before I let you go, we have, so Ariana, who you met earlier, producer, has this stack of questions here that we always ask every guest. I do not know what the next question is going to be, nor do you. So this is, again, another unscripted piece.
Awesome.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what the question looks like here. Oh my gosh, how fitting for you. I did not choose this one, by the way, nor did I write any of these, and you can't say your own brand, but if you had to wear one clothing brand for the rest of your life, what would it be and why? One clothing brand.
I feel like this is 40, and this is a brand that I am loving now in my 40s. I love Veronica Beard.
Oh my gosh. Me too. I just wore one of her I will text it to you. I just wore one of her blazers last week while I rented it. It was incredible. And I have a couple other things in my rent cart right now from Rent the Runway to wear.
Well, the blazer I'm wearing, I bought it last week in Scottsdale. I'm like, I just need this. It's versatile. So yeah, all the way. I mean, it's just, I think as you get older, it's more about quality than quantity, right?
Yeah. I just had this conversation with our team too. I have now downgraded all of my denim to 3 pair. So I have invested in, I used to have shelves of denim, shelves of them. And I have just invested in very quality denim. And the same thing with Veronica Beard stuff. I have not purchased any of her things yet. I've just been renting it and wearing it for different events, but I'll send you this blazer. I got so many compliments on it. It is fab. Oh my gosh. So exciting.
Gosh, I'm going to need another blazer. But this is like the European way. This is what the Italians do. They have these tiny wardrobes of beautiful pieces. Yeah. I'm like, I need to move to that. So
yeah,
yes,
just a couple things. Well, good. Well, thanks for joining me. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud to be your friend. It's exciting to see you grow and to thrive in the new space. If you can get some Chicago Bears stuff, I would be all on board for Chicago Bears.
Oh, working on it.
Chicago Bears gear.
We'll get you one of these days. Oh, no, thank you. This was so fun. I just appreciate your work and just supporting entrepreneurs and women. And it's just awesome to see you thrive as well. So no, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. For those that are tuning in, be sure to check back every other Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Cheers.
Cheers, Addie. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Uncorked and Unscripted. Make sure to follow and rate this podcast wherever you're watching or listening. Stay connected with us by following us on social media at Uncorked Unscripted on Instagram and Facebook, and at Uncork Unscript on Twitter and TikTok. And if you really enjoyed this episode, do us a huge favor and send it to a friend. See you soon. Bye.